We begin here bottom of the hour with news out of Akron. The 8 Akron police officers who shot and killed Jayland Walker will not testify before a grand jury. Law enforcement sources tell us the grand jury has heard from police use of force experts, and the police union attorney will give a presentation instead.
So the grand jury decision on whether charges will be filed against those officers won't come until next week, but the grand jury process, that can be a real mystery, can't it? We have our legal analyst, Stephanie Haney, here to help us better understand what's been happening this week and where we go from this point on. So, Stephanie, we always love to get your insight on things like this. So, first of all, tell us how a grand jury proceeding is different than, say, a regular criminal trial.
Sure, yeah, and it really is a mystery because a lot of it is done in secrecy, and it comes down to the purpose. The purpose of a grand jury is different than the purpose for a jury at a criminal trial, so that changes things a lot. First, the standard of proof is very different. The standard of proof in a grand jury hearing is probable cause. So this jury of 9 people will look at evidence presented from the prosecutor to decide whether there is probable cause to believe any crimes were committed. The decision doesn't have to be unanimous. 7 of those 9 jurors have to agree probable cause exists to indict any of those 8 officers who shot and killed Jayland Walker. That's whose picture you're looking at here. And they're not looking at whether those officers are guilty or innocent this week. It's just about whether another jury should get a chance to look at that question, Jay and Christy.
So a much lower bar, and we've all heard the saying, you know, you can indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah. Yes.
It is much easier to get a grand jury to agree that perhaps there was probable cause. But one thing, and you mentioned this, it's all done in secrecy. Why is that everything that's happening is basically out of our sight and out of our knowledge?
It really is out of our sight and knowledge. And the answer to that question is really evident in what's happening in Akron right now. People are already protesting in preparation for what might come out of this grand jury proceeding. And that really speaks to the possibility of potentially tainting a future jury pool in a criminal case if this moves forward. So that's one consideration for requiring secrecy. Because the standard of proof is lower in a grand jury hearing, grand jurors might see more evidence than a criminal trial jury might see. They'll see evidence that might not be admissible in a criminal trial because the rules are different, and evidence we may never see if the grand jury doesn't hand down an indictment. That's just a couple of the considerations at play when it comes to keeping these kinds of proceedings under wraps.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are wondering, what is the protocol thereafter if any of these 8 officers are indicted? And I'm wondering, I don't know if you can answer this, what if only some of them are indicted and some are not?
That is a great question. I'm glad you put it that way exactly, because a lot of things can happen here. An indictment of any of the 8 officers means this case will move forward to the next steps in preparation for trial if there is a trial. Now, if this grand jury finds enough probable cause to move forward, next comes an arraignment, pretrial conferences, and then possibly a trial. Now, a plea deal avoids a trial for an individual specific officer. Now, here's the other thing to consider. If there is an indictment, it could be less than all 8 officers. And if any of those officers are indicted, they may not face the same charges. So that's something that we'll have to wait and see until after the decision is made public, which from what we're hearing, Jay and Christy, that's expected actually to be next week. Not really likely we'll see something tomorrow, but probably going into next
Interesting.
week.
Now, to the next stage, if there is a trial, will they all go on trial together, or will these be separate trials for all of the individuals that are indicted?
That depends, and that's up to prosecutorial discretion, and it also depends on if they are facing different charges. So a lot of things to consider there, and they want to make it as clear for the jury as possible.
Yes.
That's kind of the main consideration there, not to confuse people.
And some can plea out potentially,
Sure, yeah.
and some might not.
Right.
Obviously, depending on the charges.
It's so nice having a lawyer on staff. You handle these issues so well. Thank you.
The insight we get from you is so valuable.
Stephanie
Great
Haney,
stuff.
Happy to do it.
jack of all trades.
Yes.